Today we're going to make tacos. We're going to make two kinds of simple meat filling. To make our chicken adobo, I've got 1 medium onion peeled and quartered, 3 cloves of garlic peeled. Now I actually took those little bits you get at the middle of your bulb of garlic and just peeled enough of those to equal 3 good cloves. A half a cup of unsalted chicken stock, a 1/4 cup of fresh orange juice, a cup of pineapple chunks, and then for seasoning, a teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. I've got 2 chipotle peppers plus 1 tablespoon of the adobo sauce that comes in the can, a tablespoon of chili powder, and a teaspoon each of paprika, cumin, and oregano. That's all going to go into the pot with 2 pounds of chicken. I'm using chicken breast that's boned and skinned, but you can use thighs, whatever you like, because in the end you're going to take it all apart and shred it up. I've got my 2 pounds of chicken in my crock pot, and I'm just going to sprinkle the seasoning mix evenly over the chicken, and then I'm going to flip it and give some to the other side. I'm going to use all of this up because it's going to become part of the sauce. And then I've got my garlic pieces. Just going to distribute those around as well. My fresh pineapple chunks. My quartered onion, and I'm just going to pop it apart. When the chicken is done, we will be straining this all off and then reducing it to make a sauce for the chicken tacos. That's why you don't have to really cut the onion up into small bits. And then our fresh orange juice. And our chicken stock. Now that's not a lot of liquid in there, but remember the chicken will release some juices as it cooks. And we're going to turn this just onto low, and this is going to cook for a long time until the chicken is pull apart tender. I almost forgot to add the chipotle peppers and sauce, so we're going to get that in there as well. The chicken cooked for about 4 hours, and I took that out and set it aside to cool. And then from the sauce in the crock pot, I took out the onions and the peppers, and now I've got the juices with the pineapple chunks and the garlic, and I'm going to puree this, and then I'm going to strain it and cook it down in a saucepan to make a thick sauce to coat the chicken. And when the chicken is cooled, I'm going to shred that, and then I'll put it all together. I'm going to strain the sauce from the chicken. I don't want any lumps or grittiness, but by pureeing this, I got more of the pineapple and garlic flavor into the sauce than if I had just strained out the juices. And then I'm going to put this on medium low and let it cook down. So we're going to get all the juice through there, and I'll leave behind any pulp, any big pieces of garlic if they didn't get pureed, and just leave us with the delicious juices to cook down into a sauce. For the shredded beef tacos, I took the tops off my bell peppers. The bell peppers are actually going to be part of a salad we're going to be having tomorrow. But I saved the tops, and I see people on TV throw this away all the time. It tastes just as good as the rest of the pepper. Just got to save it. So I'm just cutting this into chunks because this is going to go in the crock pot with the beef, and everything will be strained out before we make the sauce and shred the beef. For the shredded beef tacos, I've got 1 medium onion quartered, I've got about a cup of chunks of bell pepper. I used red and yellow. I don't like to use the green in this case because it can overtake the dish very quickly. I've got a half teaspoon of salt, a half teaspoon of black pepper, a tablespoon of garlic powder, and then a teaspoon each of paprika, oregano, cumin, and I've got a 1/4 teaspoon of Aleppo pepper, a 1/4 teaspoon of coriander, and a half teaspoon of celery seed ground. And I'm going to mix these all together in a bowl and sprinkle it over the beef in the crock pot. I've got a 2-pound piece of chuck roast, and I'm going to sprinkle it with the seasoning mix very liberally. And then I'm going to flip it over and get the bottom. You want to use all of this up because it'll become part of our sauce as well. And then I've got our quartered onion, and I'm just going to break that up into some smaller pieces. Again, this is all going to be strained out when the beef is done, so we don't need to have super small pieces. And we've got our pieces of bell pepper. And then I've got 1 cup of ale. I don't use lager or pilsner. I do like to use ale because it's got a deeper flavor. And again, that doesn't look like a lot of liquid in there, but this is a braise. And I will turn the chuck roast over partway through, but the beef will also release some juices. The ale will also help tenderize the meat. So I'm going to cover it and put it on low, and it's going to cook for a long time. When you're having a party for the big game day, you invite your friends, of course, and their spouses, and you may know the tastes and likes and dislikes of your friends, but perhaps not the spouses. You never know when you're going to have a vegetarian or a vegan in the bunch. So one of the fillings I'm going to make for our tostadas is a black bean filling. Now, black beans, pinto beans, you could use either. I love them, especially black beans, but they are a little boring. So we're going to doctor these up, spice them up a bit, and I'm actually using everything from the pantry and the fridge, and a lot of it is leftovers. So I've got 1 can of black beans, and I like this particular brand because it's basically just beans, water, and salt. There's nothing else added. Whereas if you buy like refried beans, you kind of don't know what you're going to get in there. So I'm going to get this can, emptied out, and then we will continue on. And you will have noticed I did not drain these beans. There's a lot of goodness in that sauce. I want to incorporate that into the beans. So as I said, I pulled a lot of this out of the refrigerator. I always have salad ingredients on hand, fresh herbs, things like that. So I had, from the other night, we had a huge chef salad for dinner. I had some leftover grape tomatoes. So I chopped up about 4 or 5 of those into a pretty fine dice. I've got some chopped peppadews. You could use roasted red peppers, you could use cherry peppers, whatever you want. So that's a sort of sweet, slightly spicy, slightly vinegary pepper. And then I've got about 2 tablespoons of chopped fresh bell pepper that was left from salad night. About 2 tablespoons of chopped onion. I've got a teaspoon of minced garlic. And about a tablespoon of fresh chopped parsley. I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of vegetable stock because, as I said, this is going to be a vegetarian dish. And just a splash of apple cider vinegar. Just want a little tang. I don't want to overpower this. And then I'm going to add a little bit of salt, but there is salt in the beans, so don't oversalt this. some fresh ground black pepper. Like I said, I prefer the fresh ground. I think it's got a brighter flavor. As much or as little of this as you like. I like it pretty peppery. Okay, then we are going to add just a 1/4 teaspoon of ground celery seed. A 1/2 teaspoon of paprika. So we've got black pepper, we've got paprika, we've got raw bell pepper, we've got pickled peppadews. So it's going to have a little spice, but it's not going to be overwhelming. We still want the beans to be the star of the dish. We're going to add just a 1/4 teaspoon of cumin. And I'm going to add, just for a little bit of heat, instead of adding hot sauce, I'm going to add just a little bit of red pepper flakes. Not too many. When you're getting ready to serve this, you can always taste it. If you want a little more heat, you can put in some hot sauce. So we're going to mix that all up, and it's going to go onto the stove and cook for quite a bit, and then I will mash it all together so it'll be sort of a refried bean dish, but with a little more flavor. And you can already see how bright and colorful this is. It's going to be very flavorful for our vegetarian tostadas. These are black beans. They've cooked about 35-40 minutes. Now you could just serve it like this. I would serve it with a slotted spoon so you don't get all that juice. But I'm going to go ahead and mash this up and reduce the liquid down a little bit more, because I want my game day foods to be a little less messy, a little less likely to fall off the tostada shell. The beans are going to have to cook for quite a while until they're very tender so that you can mash them up. I can't give you a specific time, maybe a half hour, maybe a little longer. It depends on the product, the brand of beans that you use, how long they've been already cooked by the manufacturer, but you want them to be tender enough to mash. I've microwaved 6 small flour tortillas, 15 seconds. Then I brush the inside of my pan with a little bit of corn oil. I usually use this pan for making brownies sundaes. And then I'm going to brush each tortilla, top and bottom, with a little bit of oil as well. And then just kind of form them down into the pan. Just going to push it down a little bit. Microwaving makes the tortillas softer, more pliable, so they won't crack when you put them into the pan. Now you could do the same with small corn tortillas. I would suggest just picking one size for your football buffet, but you might want to do corn and flour. It depends on what guests you have coming, what their dietary needs are. And then these are going to go into an oven. I've got it preheating at 375 degrees. And it's going to go in for only 5 minutes, and they will come out like a crispy little boat. I was going to call them tortilla cups, but I think they're a little big to be called a cup, so maybe we'll call them boats. And you got to work quickly so that the flour tortillas that you warmed up in the microwave don't start stiffening back up. And if you get one that's like this with the edge turned under a little, try to turn that back out. All right, so these are going into my oven. 5 minutes, 375 degrees. I'm going to use the same idea, but I'm going to use the smallest size tortillas that I could find, which they use these for street tacos. And I used to only be able to get these in flour, but now they make them in corn. You've got to be more careful with the corn because they will break if you're too rough on them. And they will overlap a little in the pan. So just push it in gently. And if it does break, it's not a huge deal if you have them overlapped, because it will kind of cook together. And as it cooks, it'll get nice and crispy. And these are going to go into the same 375-degree oven, but these will take 15 minutes to get nice and crispy because they are a little denser than a flour tortilla. When I was growing up, my mom's best friend, Carmen, was from Mexico. We ate tacos all the time. And I had never heard of a flour tortilla until I was an adult and went to the country's most prevalent taco chain and saw flour tortillas. Didn't know what they were, tried it, didn't like them. Corn tortillas to me have much more flavor and they get nice and crispy. That's why we all love nachos so much. So these are done and they're going to go into the same 375-degree oven but for 15 minutes. These are our flour tortillas and you can see they did get nice and crispy on the bottom. While they're still hot, I'm going to give them just a little press down to keep that bowl shape, but don't press too hard or you will crack the flour tortilla right where the edge of the glass is. So be very gentle. I just want to have a depression in here to hold the toppings. And then I'm going to get them out onto a platter because if I leave them in the pan, they're going to get a little soggy on the bottom from the steam. Be careful. These are hot. Here we have the smaller corn tortilla cups. So now it's time to start filling our tostadas. You can see I've got quite a spread of ingredients. You don't need to do all of these ingredients. These are just suggestions. If you watched my original video on tacos, I taught you how to make guacamole, salsa, corn salsa, pineapple and mango salsa, and a relish that had the radish and the cucumbers in it. So I took some of those ideas for this, but not everything, and you can just pick and choose what you like the best. We also have our shredded beef and our chicken al pastor, our crispy onions, some shredded cabbage, and some shredded baby greens. So let's get to work putting these together. We have our refried black beans. You can see it's a nice thick but chunky paste, so it's not like totally mashed out like you'll often find in refried beans. Now this is vegetarian if you make sure that the flour tortillas you get are not made with lard. Most of them are, so you're going to have to shop around. Otherwise you could use the corn tortillas because those generally don't have any lard in them. So I'm going to give this a little bit of everything almost that can qualify as our vegetarian slash vegan. So we got a little bit of the corn salsa going in here. I'm going to put a couple pieces of radish and cucumber. And then rather than making guacamole, I actually just did some mashed avocado with a little bit of lime and salt. So we're going to put that on there. Now we can't put cheese on it if it's going to be vegan, but we can put cheese on it if it's vegetarian. And then on top, either a little cabbage or a little bit of the chopped mixed greens. So that's a vegetarian one. I'm going to do a chicken one, and I'm actually going to put my cheese down first and put the hot chicken on top of that. It'll help melt the cheese. Now I'm using a slotted spoon for my meats so I don't get too much of the juice on there because this is supposed to be football food that you can eat while sitting on my couch and hopefully not getting it all messy. I'm going to give this some of the pineapple mango salsa. This is delicious with chicken tacos. I'm going to give a little dollop of our mashed avocado. And you notice I'm kind of working it in so it gets into all the bites. Now you can let your guests do this all by themselves and you might end up with a messy table. It's up to you. Or you can pre-assemble these like I am. So I got a little bit of the mixed green on there. And I'm actually going to give it a little dollop of sour cream, which also goes very well with the chicken tacos. So with my chicken tacos, I like the avocado, I like the sour cream, and I like the mango, pineapple. So give it just a little dollop of sour cream on top of that. Number 3 is going to be our beef. I'm actually going to lay down a layer of our refried beans, and then some cheese, and then the beef. And the cheese between the beans and the beef, which are both warm, should melt that cheese nicely. Okay, and then I'm going to put a little heartier on this. So I'm going to give this the corn salsa, whereas the more delicate chicken flavor got the avocado and the mango. I'm going to give some black olives, and I've just halved these. I don't put them into tiny slices because I want to taste the olive. So I'm being generous with that as well. Give it a little bit more cheese on top because I'm sure that's what my husband would want. This one's going to get some cabbage. And I think a little dollop of sour cream for this as well. Like I said, this is going to be for my husband, so I might as well make it the way he likes it. So there we have 3 beautiful tostadas, but again, if you leave this out for your guests to put together, they could mix and match whatever they want to do. I'm going to do some of the smaller ones, the corn tortilla. So I'm going to put a little cheese down in there, a little bit of chicken. These you obviously cannot get as much into. A little bit of our mango pineapple. And maybe just a black olive for garnish. Okay, so that's a chicken one. And then I'm going to do a beef one. So again, put my cheese at the bottom, a little bit of the beef, a little bit of the corn salsa, and this time I'm going to top it with a couple of our crispy shallots. And then the last one, I'm going to do a vegetarian again. So this one, I'm going truly vegan. I'm going to give us, the corn tortilla has no animal fats in it at all. The beans do not either because I made my own. I'm going to give it a little bit of the corn. I'm going to give it 1 slice of cucumber and 1 slice of radish. I had a really giant radish, so now that one's a little too big for this little guy. We'll go with a smaller piece of radish. Okay, a dollop of our avocado, and maybe just a teeny bit of cabbage on there. And those are our cute little corn tortilla cups. So just have fun, pick the ingredients you like. You can use these. You could go back to my old video and do the Caribbean chicken, the grilled pork, anything you like, and just put it all together. Put it out for your guests to make, or make them up ahead of time, because they sure do look delicious and it looks like you put in a ton of work.